out in folds of midnight waters, side by side, we sons and daughters. We set forth for no king's orders, but we'll sail together. Hold fast, tides are turning, flames roar, fires are burning, we'll all be returning if we sail together.
Hello! This is part one of a special presentation from the Generation Jumpstart Club, brought to you by the auspices of the American Sunlight News and Literature Podcast and the Party of Commons, an isolationist entity. First, we'll start off with our introduction to this special series about marriage and family, and then we'll proceed right to part one. Our overall presentation may extend over the entire week that began yesterday, Sunday, June 22nd, 2025, Anno Domini. We hope to show all 4 parts by the end of the week, if not this entire video. Introduction: God, marriage, family, and the American destiny. The United States stands at a moral crossroads, its cultural foundation shaken by a gradual but persistent departure from the divine principles that once served as its bedrock. Marriage and family, pillars of both private virtue and public order, have been redefined, devalued, and in many ways disregarded. Yet these institutions were never merely human inventions, they are sacred orders, etched into the fabric of civilization by divine wisdom. To lose sight of their purpose is to unravel the very cords that bind society. This essay contends that America must realign itself with the scriptural vision for marriage and family if it is to reclaim its destiny as a morally grounded, civically strong, and spiritually anchored nation. Part 1. The historical foundation of American morality. When the early settlers arrived on the shores of the New World, they carried with them not only the dreams of liberty and opportunity but a deeply ingrained conviction that law, society, and governance must be rooted in God's revealed truth. The Puritans, Quakers, Baptists, and other religious communities were not monolithic in theology, but they shared a common reverence for the authority of Scripture. It was this reverence that shaped early American views on family, marriage, gender roles, child-rearing, and civil order. This scriptural foundation was not merely private piety, it became public architecture. Colonial laws often mirrored biblical statutes, encouraging marital fidelity, parental responsibility, and the sanctity of life. The family was seen as a miniature commonwealth, the primary training ground for virtue and discipline. Marriage was not seen simply as a romantic bond or social contract, it was a covenantal institution ordained by God, forming the moral nucleus of the community. The Founding Fathers, even those less explicitly religious, recognized the moral utility of Christian values in sustaining a republic. John Adams famously noted, "Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other." The assumption was clear: self-governance required self-discipline, and self-discipline was cultivated first and foremost in the home. This framework held steady for generations, shaping not only laws but societal expectations. The family was celebrated as a moral incubator, and marriage as the holy ground upon which future citizens were shaped. The American project, its liberty, prosperity, and global influence, was never solely the fruit of economic ingenuity or political innovation. It was rooted in the moral soil of a people who, however imperfectly, sought to honor God's design. Part 2. The Judicial Shift. Roe, Obergefell, and the Erosion of Moral Order. The moral fabric of a nation is often woven, and sometimes unwoven, not only in homes and churches but in courtrooms. Two landmark Supreme Court rulings stand out as watershed moments in America's departure from its foundational principles: Roe v. Wade, 1973, and Obergefell v. Hodges, 2015. These decisions, rather than reflecting the moral compass of a scripturally guided people, ushered in a redefinition of life and marriage that conflicted with millennia of Judeo-Christian understanding. Roe v. Wade established a constitutional right to abortion, effectively removing protections for unborn life under the guise of personal liberty. With this ruling, the sanctity of life, a core tenet of biblical morality, was subordinated to individual autonomy. The moral cost was incalculable. What was once regarded as a sacred duty, the nurturing of life, became, in many circles, an inconvenient burden. The ripple effects were immediate and lasting: the devaluation of motherhood, the erosion of family responsibility, and the normalization of a culture detached from the responsibilities of creation and care. Though Roe has since been overturned, its legacy persists. The habits of mind and policy it introduced continue to shape attitudes toward childbirth, parenting, and the value of human life. The court's correction, while significant, has not fully reversed the cultural tide it helped unleash. Then came Obergefell v. Hodges, in which the court declared same-sex marriage a constitutional right under the 14th Amendment. In doing so, the court did more than broaden access to civil marriage; it effectively redefined the institution itself.